Hey, Devon Digital here. And as promised, I told you that I was going to take the iPhone 13 Pro out and do some Camera Raw or Apple ProRaw samples and come back in the studio. And we're going to play around with the raw files and see, how they compare to the Canon camera, the Canon EOS R, the camera that I'm currently shooting on now. And let's get right into it. So hope you enjoyed the video. Peace. Alright guys, so we are going to go into Camera Raw, which is the iPhone Raw versus the Canon Raw. So, not going to edit, just want to see how much data you can actually recover from each photo. So sitting here, we're looking at the iPhone 13 Pro right here. And this is this photo right here. This is the raw file. And we're just gonna go to extreme measures and go all the way down to see how much data we can get back in the highlights. And as you can see, we can get pretty much. So let's go to the Canon and let's do the same thing. Bring that down and boom. And here is both the same, about the same amount, pretty much the same amount of data. The only difference is that it's going to be a lot blurred on the Canon because of the sensor size and the lens. So just expect that in all the pictures that the depth of field is going to be 10 times better than what the iPhone can actually do, unless you shoot in portrait mode to give that fake look. But phones tend to expose everything in focus, and it's not something I really like. I want, like, if I'm taking a picture of a landscape with a person in it, then I want everything to kind of be in focus so I can get the whole scene. But a subject like this standing out, I kind of want to focus just on the subject and have a little bit of blur back there. But obviously I could have shot in portrait mode. All right, so just trying to explain a little bit of photography. So let's go back and try the shadows, and there's not much shadows besides the shadows that's in her hair. But let's see how good. Let's just set this back to 0. And we're gonna set this one back to 0. Now, normally with a real camera, HDR is funny. You gotta actually put the real camera in HDR mode, and you gotta take bracket shots and it is stitch it together, and then you'll have like a shot similar to this a little bit. But if you don't, which I don't ever shoot in HDR, I just rather expose for my subject. If I don't have my equipment with me, like my flash and stuff, I just expose for my subject, and then I just do the editing in post and bring back the background just like that when it comes to a real camera. But there's different ways you can do this. If I had a flash, I could have just I could expose for the background, which I would have had the background looking like this. This would be the photo that I would take. Then I would use the flash, and then the flash would hit her, and then the flash would bring her up like that. So that's pretty much how that will work if you're using a flash, which I do use flash for my photography. So let's go ahead and get everything right. So anyways, let's go to the highlights. So we're gonna bring down, the shadows. We're gonna bring up the shadows and see how much detail we have up in the shadows up in here. So we're gonna zoom in. Quite a bit of noise in there. Obviously you're gonna get noise, so that's just normal. All right, let's go to the iPhone, do the same thing. Let's go ahead and set everything back to 0 first. And set you to 0, and then we're gonna bring up those shadows. And here are the shadows on the iPhone right here. I would say, obviously the Canon beats it in detail, but the iPhone definitely gives you some good details. There's a little milky up in there, but I can see the difference. Here's the Canon and here's the iPhone. Looks a little oil paintish, but that's pretty much, this one's just noisy looking. So yeah, so that's that photo. So let's go to the next one. So I would say with this shot, the iPhone did a great job. So let's try this one right here. All right, the first shot is the iPhone 12 Pro, which you can see right here, and then the second one right here would be the Canon EOS R right here. So again, we're going to do the same process. We're going to take those, sorry, this is on by default. So let me go ahead and get this contrast, because I like to start off with like almost no contrast sometimes. All right, here we go. So we're going to go with the exposure. We're going to bring it down, see what we can retrieve from background. As you can see, we got the sky back, and let's do the same thing over here. And it's pretty much the same. Again, you're gonna see a little bit of different depth because you can see the trees are blurry here. And then right here, you see they're completely in focus because again, the iPhone sensor is very small. It's a camera phone sensor, so it makes sense. So therefore, data is back. So both obviously did a good job getting that data back. So let's go ahead and try out the highlights. I mean the shadows, because we just did the highlights. So the Canon and the iPhone is doing pretty good. All right, let's go. This is the darkest area again. So let's see where we on iPhone. Let's see what those shadows looking like. And we retrieved a lot of, all right, let's just see what the Canon providing first before I say. Okay, so no. Okay, again, yeah, this is missing a lot of data in the shadows right here for sure, the iPhone. But you wouldn't push it this far on any of these when you're editing. So I would say this is still pretty fair. This is still pretty fair. I wouldn't even like say that this is horrible. This is pretty fair of what you would get because you wouldn't push your shadows this hard. I mean, I wouldn't. I don't know who would. But yeah, you can definitely see the details here. Let's go back. Let's see. You can see shadows here cleared up pretty well. Let's see the iPhone. Still a little bit of no detail. I mean, you can see some, but just not as clear as the Canon. The Canon pulled more details from right here from the shadows. So again, the iPhone isn't bad and the Canon isn't bad. You would not pull your shadows up this hard. You got to be crazy to do something like that and then think that you're going to have a usable photo. But yeah, I think it did pretty good. So let's go to the next photo. All right, let's go. All right, this one right here, man, I shot this one and it was getting like really dark, and this is what the iPhone did and this is what the Canon did right here. Well, I underexposed a little bit on purpose. So as you can see, she's a little slightly underexposed, but still a good overall photo. And I still got the sky in the background as well. And the iPhone HDR again just failed me completely. I got a little bit over here, but other than that, it's just completely over here. But we shot in RAW, so that's the whole point, right? When iPhone HDR fails you, if you shoot in RAW, you can always get it back. So that's the whole point. Let's see how much we can get back with the highlights. I mean, well, yeah, the highlights. So we'll go ahead and bring that down, and boom, we have the whole entire sky, as you can see. So you can definitely get that data back. Let's do the same thing over here. Canon, again, both are doing pretty well, retrieving that data. Again, you're gonna find more blur over here than you are on the other one. So let's go here, bring that back, and bring that back. And let's go back to the iPhone. Now we're gonna do the shadows. And of course, the hair is the darkest spots over here and under the legs. So we just kind of like look at these areas. So let's go ahead and bring the shadows up and zoom in, and got pretty good detail here. Let's see, and got detail here. That's not really that bad over here. And the hair, again, is the same story for each one of these photos. With the hair, you're gonna get but so much detail back. But again, you wouldn't push your shadow so hard. If you did, like I said, you gotta be crazy. So here we go again with the Canon. Oh, let's zoom in, sorry. And of course, the Canon is still doing better here with the details that you receive. Then you have a milky kind of like oil painting look over here. And then you have a lot of noise over here, which you can actually fix noise pretty much in post with the noise reduction. It can help out. As you can see, I reduced some of that noise here, and you can get a usable image out of this. Literally, you can get a usable image. Did I say image right? I did. Image out of here. Completely fix that. But when it looks like this on the iPhone, you can't fix this. You can try to add like as much sharpening as you want, but it's just going to terrorize the picture no matter what you do. So and again, we're talking about a pro level camera to a smartphone, so this image is still very much usable. You just don't want to push it too far when you're doing post editing. So good job on the iPhone again. All right, let's go to this photo right here. Now the last one was interesting. I'm gonna explain that one though. So this one right here is shot on the iPhone 13 Pro, and this right here is shot on the Canon. These two are almost like identical. You can just tell the quality and the skin tones a little bit better over here. She's a little more warm, because Apple loves really warm tones. This is my niece, by the way. She is not that bright. And over here, you know, her skin tone is more settled right here, and even her shirt is more warmer and stuff like that. So it's just an iPhone thing. And even the wall, I mean, just we're not gonna get here and talk about the colors, okay? I got sidetracked a little bit, but yeah, we already know how Apple, you know, their processing is warm or whatever, and that's okay. You know, that's their way of doing things. So let's go ahead and bring this contrast down real quick first. So this is the original shot right here, and this is the original shot of this one, and we're gonna go ahead and do the highlights, but the highlights are pretty good already, so maybe I don't need to bring the exposure down. I can probably just bring down the highlights itself and on both and just see what we get. Again, the Canon is going to blur this background out, so you know, things are going to be a little bit different compared to the iPhone. Like if I was taking a portrait of somebody, I don't want this stuff right here, none of this stuff in focus. Now again, I would have to use portrait mode, but you know, portrait mode ain't always the best sometimes. So you know, this is kind of like what you want if you're doing a portrait. It's very pleasing because this is your subject, not this shit in the background. Like these cars right here, you just definitely don't want those. Of course, the angle is different right here because of the lens, so it's kind of hard to match these phones sometimes. All right, anyway, just go to the shadows. So we're gonna start with iPhone again. Let's bring those shadows up and see if we can get that data. So if you can see in the trees that we got some data back over here in the trees, we got some data back over here in the hair, and this time it's doing a lot better with the hair, a lot better. And of course we got the milky look or oil painted look, whatever you want to call it, blah blah blah. But details in the shadows is pretty good. Again, if you're editing, you don't want to push it this far, but if I needed to get back some details in post editing, I definitely can. So good job again on iPhone. Let's go to the Canon and we're going to pull that up, and obviously, oh, I try to zoom in. Obviously, the Canons give you more details. Again, with the noise, that's what they give you, but you still got an overall sharp, good image right here. That's a workable image that you can work with in here. And now they got a little HDR look to it. Very, very ugly. I would never push the shadows that hard, but you know, you're not gonna get the data in the trees and stuff like that on the iPhone, because obviously that is blown out by the camera sensor and the lens compared to the iPhone trying to keep everything in focus. So that's the difference between a lot of smartphone cameras and actual cameras. Now let's get to the one that's really interesting. So if we go here, I believe even before showing you that the iPhone actually did better here than the Canon. So let's go ahead and set everything back to 0 real quick. And again, as you can see, the blur, her face was a subject. This was shot at like 1.8 on aperture, and this is going to be the sharpest area up here. And then the iPhone pretty much have her all the way in focus, including the background, including like the ground and everything else that, you know, I didn't capture in this photo unfortunately, but sorry, but that's not what it was about. It was really hard to get that angle without going all the way under her skirt, to be honest with you. So anyways, let's go with the Canon first. So let's bring up that detail, and well, let's do the highlights. This is where I'm talking about the highlights. So I'm going to bring the highlights all the way down, and as you can see over here, it did really well bringing these highlights down right here. Okay, now the Canon, not so well. You bring it down, still overexposed here, 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 and here. Here's the difference. See it here, see it here, see it here, see it here. So yeah, definitely good job on the iPhone on that part. Let's go ahead into the shadows. I'm gonna bring that up. Okay, again, more detail, more noise, and let's bring these shadows up, and there we go. It didn't even retrieve any. This data is gone completely because it's black. You're not getting that data back. But you know, again, you wouldn't really push it again. It did pretty good here. Let's see the difference. Okay, we definitely got more here, more data here, as you can see up here. And actually, theoretically, we lost data here too on the Canon as well. So that probably was just solid black in the first place because of the shadows completely. So that's crushed. There's no getting this stuff back right here. But here, as you can see, the Canon as well did better for details there. and details there. And let's see, and then I didn't get the hair right there. And then let's go to the trees. So as you can see, we can actually see a fully tree formed right here. You see the whole entire tree right here, and the leaves and everything else in the background. And then we move over, we see a building over here, and we can actually make out that these are trees. So getting that data back was pretty good. It did a really, really good job. And if we go back to how it was, this is what the iPhone shot in the beginning. If I was to shoot a JPEG, this is what the JPEG would have came out with. But because I shot in Camera Raw, I said Camera Raw, because I shot in ProRaw, this is what you can get back if you need it. So good job on bringing back that data. So, you know, I don't recommend people shoot in RAW on the iPhone, only because I know that in most scenarios, people just want to point and shoot and get a good picture and not have to worry about editing. But if you are a person who likes to edit and you care about highlights and shadows not being, you know, blown out or underexposed, then I do recommend that you shoot in RAW if you're one of those people, because I think that it's going to be the best exposure that you're going to be able to get out of the iPhone in certain situations, because sometimes the HDR just doesn't want to work at all, and you're going to get stuff that was going to be blown out. And that's pretty much, you know, what I recommend. That so if you are a person who don't mind editing, I would tell you to shoot in Camera Raw, and well, I keep saying Camera Raw, sorry, ProRaw. And it doesn't really matter. Raw is raw. Every company calls it something different. There's CR3, which is Canon. Nikon call it NEF files, and Sony, can't remember Sony Raw. I don't remember Sony's, but everybody has their own extension. Even Google has DNG or whatever like that. They use DNG for their raw files. So it all depends on you know what, you know, company is going to call it. But if you're an editor and you want to get that, you know, best photo that you can, I recommend that you actually shoot in RAW on any of your devices. And if you're going to trust the autofocus or the auto mode to do everything, and just hopefully it gives you the shot that you're looking for, then you can too. The average person would definitely do that, but if you're somebody who don't mind touching up a photo a little bit, then, you know, you can't go wrong with RAW. And the best thing about RAW, you can actually get the skin tones right. And I can go ahead and show you a photo. Let me find that photo. Where would that photo be? Where would that photo be? Ah, yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna show you a photo where it actually did really good with the skin tones. And I do not have that photo in here, so I'll have to post that photo up in the video. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I was really excited to show you guys. I didn't really know how I wanted to tackle this Camera Raw thing, but I really wanted to show you how good the Apple ProRaw Res is compared to a real camera. It's really good. It's actually fun to work with or whatever like that. But appreciate you watching the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.